We got a lot to get to. Let's get to it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Reds will play their first spring training games on Saturday. They had their first full squad workout on Monday. We're still over a month away from opening day on March 27th, but it's time, Skinny. We got to start talking a little Reds. People are going to start asking, like, hey, pitchers and catchers reported. What's going on? Why aren't you guys talking Reds yet? So while we still got some time until the opening day, we'll do all our predictions and stuff a little bit later on. Let's get into talking about some of the position battles that are going to take place here at spring training. We'll start with the starting pitchers because I think this is an area where they're hoping to be improved. I think they will be improved, but they're also dealing with some injury setbacks here to start spring training. It feels like Green, Lodolo are definitely set. You would think Abbott would be set too in that starting rotation, although he's dealing with a shoulder injury right now. Rhett Lauder probably in that group, although he's dealing with an elbow injury right now. What else are you looking at in terms of the starting pitching rotation?
I mean, I think if everybody that you pencil down is healthy, it's 6 guys for 5 spots, unless you want to go to a 6-man rotation. Some teams are actually talking about dabbling in that this year. Because then you got obviously Brady Singer, they got the Jonathan India trade, and then Nick Martinez, who was just such a valuable guy in both starting and relieving roles. In a perfect world, Rhett Lauder is in your rotation. In a perfect world, Andrew Abbott's in your rotation. So there's 4. I mean, you didn't get Brady Singer to come over here to be a reliever, I don't think. I think he would probably be the 5th guy. And then I do think Nick Martinez fills that valuable, I don't want to call it long role, but a guy who on a given day can be a 3-inning bridge. And I just think that's an important piece to have, but also a guy that you can fall back on as a starter. I honestly think if Rhett Lauder's healthy, I think he might be their second best pitcher, Rick. I know it was a small sample size, but he was a first-round pick. He was terrific in college. He fast-tracked through the system, rightfully so. And then when he came up last year, I thought he not only was good, I thought at times he was great. So hopefully this is a minor setback. I know they talked about taking him along slowly. Bring him along slowly in the spring, and that's fine. There's no reason to rush the guy. I think it's the one thing that shows up here is it's a good thing you do have some depth. I mean, you don't have to all of a sudden go, all right, we got to scramble for a 4th or 5th starter. No, there's going to be, in a perfect world, an odd man out with some other help potentially on the way as well. And so I'm interested to see how quickly can Lauder get back. What's the situation with Abbott? And then if you have everybody, what do you do with that Martinez-Singer situation?
Yeah, I mean, what are you thinking ideally? What would you like it? What would you like it to look like? Green, Lodolo, Abbott, Lauder, Singer?
Yeah, and then put Martinez in that. Again, I don't want to call it long role because that always has the mop up guy. Now it's this day and age, that role to me is
versatility role, maybe
versatility role. Yeah, I mean a guy who can on a day when Hunter Green is pitching great and has all of a sudden reached his pitch limit at 5 2/3 innings. Nick Martinez can come in and maybe bridge the rest of the game out for you. And I think that's just a really important role.
Yeah, in a game where, by the way, the other team hasn't scored yet or only has 2 hits or something. It's not a game necessarily that's mop-up duty, to your point.
Correct.
The bullpen, it feels like they have a number of good options to me.
Yes,
this is the area of the team that I really feel like they did significantly upgrade during this offseason. Anything particular that you're interested in here with the bullpen?
Yeah, I want to see what's Taylor Rogers maybe has left in the tank. That is he going to be the 3rd lefty? I mean, they've got 3 lefties I think that can really give you something in Sam Moll, Brent Suter, and then Rogers. Rogers could also, in my opinion, I mean, he's done it before, could close games out on days when Alexis Diaz has maybe gone a couple of days in a row closing games out. And then there's just a bunch of arms that have a shot to fill maybe that whatever 13th, 12th, or 13th role in the bullpen. I think there's a lot of good bullpen battles to watch during spring training. There's so many guys to name. I'm not going to name them all. You can go to local12.com. I got them all listed there. And you can look at some of those battles for yourself. But I think it's a good thing that it's not like, okay, we got to fall back on that guy. And, oh, yeah, by the way, we got to have a guy fill it out, and it's going to be – no, I think there's going to be legitimate arms in that bullpen. There's not going to be a guy you go, boy, I don't think I can count on him, or we're rolling the dice with that guy. I think there's a lot of good options.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there are innings eaters there or young guys that you're going, well, he's just going to have to do for right now. It feels like everyone is a real major league caliber pitcher that's in that bullpen right now. And I think they have some depth. I think they have, like you said, multiple lefties in there. I mean, they've got the makings of a really nice bullpen. That's one area of this team that I feel pretty confident about going into the start of the season.
Agreed.
Looking at the infield, Skinny.
Ooh.
Tell me what you like. I mean, because there are a couple options here in terms of how you want to do this. What alignment do you like the best going into it here without having seen any of these
All
guys
right.
yet this
So,
year?
so this is just my own opinion. I know that fans are going to scoff at this. I know the Reds would scoff at this, and this is not going to happen. But my own opinion would be um, either Jamer or Christian Encarnacion Strand at first, and you can depend on how you want to do that against whatever pitching, and then maybe the fallback plan is that guy's the DH, or Spencer Steer falls into the DH role maybe. Um, I like Lux at second, McLean at short, and Ellie at third. I know that's not how it's going to shake out. I think Ellie's better suited as a third baseman. He's just so quick and reactionary. I mean, he's a great shortstop in several ways, but he still botches the routine play every once in a while. So that's not going to happen. So then, what do you do with the McLean Lux situation? I mean, if it's me and Matt McLean's back to Matt McLean of 2023, he's an everyday player. So what does that do for at bats for Gavin Lux in that circumstance? I think you want to give him, honestly, if things were 350 to 400 at bats this year. And then at third base, do you put Candelaria there some? Do you put Steer there some? Do you put Lux there some? You got a lot of options there. I think the odd guy out is going to be Noel Marte, and maybe that's not a bad thing either. Maybe the best thing for him is to spend a month or two at AAA, and if he's crushing it down there, and he's the guy you thought he was, there's going to be an injury, as we all know, at some point somewhere, and he can be ready to come back up. I think that's the perfect world. That's the thing I'm interested in, is how does this really all shake out in the infield? Because there's a lot of different options Terry Francona can play with.
I was confused there as you were talking because I'm hearing you talk and I'm thinking, well, what's the issue then? Who is the odd man out that he's worried about? I didn't realize you still think Noel Marte might be in that mix. I think he's a definite minor league guy to start the year.
Yeah, I do too. No, I'm with you in that regard. So I mean, if you're keeping your infielders, it's CES, Jamer, and I'm going to put Steer in the outfield for right now, just because.
Same. I got him starting left field.
Yeah, so CES, Jamer, Gavin Lux, McLean, Ellie, and then Santiago Espinal as your utility guy. And I'm probably missing. No, I guess I'm not missing because I put Steer in the outfield.
Yeah, I don't know. I know you said Candelario before. I don't know if you did just now when you were naming off guys, but yeah, right. I mean, I like Candelario at first, McLean at second, Ellie at shortstop. I mean, I get your point about third. I'm fine with that. I don't think they're actually going to consider that. So McLean at second, Ellie at short, Lux at third, and CES as the DH. Obviously, Stevenson catching. That would be my ideal alignment going into the season. Obviously, there's a lot of question marks there. There's the Noel Marte. There's the CES question about how both of those guys are coming back. There's the McLean question. I mean, there are a lot of moving pieces with this roster, and I think it can be easy as a Reds fan or even as a media person from an outside perspective looking at this Reds team. And if you want to go off of the projections for all these young players based on what we thought they were going to be going into last year, then I think it's easy to talk yourselves into this Reds team being really good.
Right. No, right. I'm with you. But I think that's
the problem we have last year to go off of that told us a lot of these guys weren't necessarily what we thought they were going to be last year. So
yeah, but again,
them were injured.
Two of them were hurt. I mean, CES clearly played through the injury. That's why the numbers stunk. And obviously McLean didn't play because of the injury. I think that's the thing that Reds fans have to really understand here, in my opinion, is your rebuild was built around these young guys being good. Well, let's see if they are. I don't think we've seen that. I don't think there's proof either way of that yet. And I think that's what we need to find out still.
Well, there's not proof either way, but the only evidence we have to this point suggests that they aren't what we thought they were going to be.
That is.
Yeah. And well, I mean, that's concern. Like this team, unless everyone lives up to those previous expectations that we're over a year removed from now, I don't know that this team is much better. That would be my concern.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just think, again, that's what you're basing this rebuild on, is that
exactly. That's a concern.
And I'm fine with that. That's why those that are wringing their hands if they didn't go get a power bat in the outfield or in the corner infield, who was there to go get? I mean, honestly, at the budgetary stuff, I mean, Luis Robert, come on, that dude is a washed up hack, in my opinion.
I mean, Skinny, you can say there wasn't the options for them to go get, or there wasn't the right answer out there, but that doesn't remove the problem of their talent level still isn't at the level that's going to compete.
We don't know that, though. See, we don't know that.
We don't know that, but all of the Reds' recent history suggests that you should probably aim on the pessimistic side of projections with them than the optimistic side. And what happened last year is we all thought all these young guys were going to magically develop into stars, and it didn't happen. And now we're basically running it back with the same group saying, well, maybe this year they'll actually be stars. Well, and I realize some of them were injured.
But yeah, I think you have to factor that. I mean, Matt McClain didn't even play.
Sure, but he's also now an entire year removed from sitting out and being injured, and who knows if he gets back to form. That's the other part of that. Like, I understand that maybe all of these things will work out great for the Reds, and that's what they're hoping for. But from a realistic perspective, the odds of that happening when it didn't happen last year, not very good.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is I don't know how much, and I don't know how much you need this team to be an offensive juggernaut if the pitching staff's as good as we think it is either.
But again, I'd go back to, I think the pitching staff can be solid. It can be good, but it's not like this team was right on the cusp or just missed last year.
Oh, understood.
They stunk.
Understood.
So it's like, you have to be significantly better. You can't just be like, oh yeah, the pitching staff is so great that a little bit of offensive help will be enough. No, you got to be way better than you were in all aspects of the game this year.
That's a fair point.
What about the outfield?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you got 5 spots, right? You got Friedel, Fraley. I'm putting Steer in the outfield for the moment. Austin Hayes, and in my opinion, Stuart Fairchild. The odd guy out's Will Benson. I mean, you talk about a guy who got a chance to prove it and didn't. That was him. And sorry, guy, you had a whole year to prove yourself there, and you really didn't do it.
Yeah, I did completely agree with that. I don't think Benson is going to be a factor this year. Unfortunately, he's another guy that, like, going into last year, it was like, hey, Will Benson could be a breakout star. Look at this talent. And we saw what happened with that. Hopefully this year they won't have to rely on him. Any other thoughts in terms of the position battles or what you're hoping to see out of the next couple of weeks here in spring training?
I'm just not so sure there's anybody that forces their way onto the roster, to be honest with you. I think it feels like it's a pretty set group for the most part. It's just a matter of where do the infield pieces shake out. And then probably from a platoon perspective, how do you platoon the outfield? Like Friedel starts in center for sure against lefties, Steers in left, and Hayes is in right. And then against righties, perhaps it's Jake Fraley in right, Steer stays in left. Maybe Steer becomes a left fielder the whole season. So I do think you have a little bit of better options against lefties this year. Maybe Friedel comes out against lefties and Stuart Fairchild, who actually isn't awful against lefties. He's not a great player overall, but he's not awful against lefties. Maybe he gets a handful of starts against lefties, because let's not forget, this was not a very good team against left-handed pitching last year.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think really, to your point about it feels like the roster is set, that is, in a way, I guess it makes me feel better about this group, that if you are going to have someone make the team that's unexpected, they're going to have earned it. I mean, they're going to have clearly beat out someone that looks like an incumbent starter.
Who was the guy that hit the home run? Was it Martini? Nick Martini last year?
Yeah.
Or 2 year, whatever it was. Remember Mike Ford from last year?
Mike Ford. No, who was our guy who started at first base the year before?
Oh, I'm drawing a blank. That wasn't Martini, was it?
No. There was a
I'm drawing a blank. I know what you're saying. Yeah. It was a great
lasted for like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
The most no-name Reds player of all time.
Like had a triple on opening day, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm told. I know exactly what you're saying. I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Yeah, I'm looking up the last year's opening day roster.
I think I thought that was a big Nick Martini day early in the year.
It might have been. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before.
No, it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago, and I can't think of the first baseman's name. You're gonna make me look it up now on Baseball Reference, aren't you?
Yeah, we've got to see Vossler, Jason Vossler.
Jason Vossler, the great Jason Vossler. Great
shout out to our guy Jason Vossler. What's he up to now? Let's check out Jason Vossler's Wikipedia page.
I'm gonna say that he was either in AAA for someone last year, or he's out of baseball, or maybe even over in Japan.
Bingo.
All right,
he was the third baseman and first baseman for the Chunichi Dragons of the Nippon Professional Baseball.
I'm going to say he slugged 28 home runs over there.
The NPB. I don't know. I'm not going deep enough to look up his Asian stats. Fair enough. Shout out to Jason Vossler, Reds opening day legend.